Hello, I'm Brian Lucareli, Director of our Private Client Services Group and co-chair of our Family Offices team at Foley and Lerner. And today I'm here with Michael Calabrese, a partner and member of our Fund Formation and Investment Management Group, and Emmaline Jurgena, an associate and member of our Estate Planning Group. Welcome both, and today we're going to discuss program-related investments. Because I am welcoming you back to the interview series, if you would each take a couple of minutes and just share a little bit of your professional background, and then we'll jump right into it.
Sure, Brian. As you said, I'm Michael Calabrese. Been with Foley about 7 years. Prior to that, I spent most of my law career in public service. I was with the City of San Diego, the County of Merced, and then I was the general counsel for the San Bernardino County Employees Retirement Association, which is the county pension plan. As a result of that background and also what I do at Foley, most of my time is spent helping institutional investors make investments of various sorts.
Great. Emmaline?
Thanks, Brian. My name is Emmaline Jurgena. I'm an associate in Foley's estate planning practice. So I do all things estate and trust planning, tax planning, and then I specialize in tax-exempt planning and charitable planning. So I work with everything from high net worth individuals who would like to leave a charitable legacy, to private foundations, to large public charities, to hospitals and universities.
Well, I've got the two right experts today. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to discuss program-related investments, and I'm going to jump right into this. So what is a program-related investment, and why would a charitable organization want to make one?
So a program-related investment is a special carve-out in the tax code that allows a private foundation to invest for charitable purposes rather than making a typical charitable grant. So unlike a grant, program-related investments can take the form of loans that are expected to be repaid or investments by the private foundation that are expected to generate some type of return. However, to ensure that the foundation isn't engaging in non-charitable activity, which is generally prohibited for a private foundation, the program-related investment has to meet certain criteria to qualify as a program-related investment. So specifically, the primary purpose of the investment must be to advance the private foundation's charitable purposes. The production of income or appreciation of property cannot be a significant purpose of the program-related investment. And the funds cannot be used to influence legislation or for political purposes or lobbying. So when a private foundation is considering making a program-related investment, it really has to look at it and identify how it furthers its charitable mission. It can't just make the investment to generate return. And why would a foundation want to make a program-related investment? A big reason is that this method can allow a private foundation to support causes that are not necessarily conducted by typical charities. So classic examples include low-income housing that may be developed by for-profit corporations, development in foreign countries that doesn't necessarily involve IRS-recognized public charities, or business development in disadvantaged urban areas that maybe can't be accomplished through typical grant-making. So program-related investments give foundations more flexibility, allows them to adapt to the needs of communities that they're serving rather than being limited to that grant-making box. And also in general, I see philanthropy is becoming more creative. Donors want to support innovative projects and new technology, and program-related investments are really a good way to do this. So I know Michael has some specific examples that he sees often in his practice.
Yeah, these things, it's a neat method for a charitable foundation to advance their mission because you don't have to necessarily look around just in the nonprofit sector, right? So, for example, we work with a charitable foundation that has part of its mission helping the development and maintenance of infrastructure in underserved communities. So that foundation identified a company that was using innovative technology to monitor and maintain utility infrastructure in remote areas. For-profit company doing that for-profit, but they're doing a very specific thing that furthered this foundation's mission. Similarly, you might have a mission to, expand the access to reproductive health care. Well, there's all sorts of companies out there that are doing innovative things to advance reproductive health care. Again, they're doing it to make a profit, but they're doing the thing that aligns with your mission. Those are just a couple examples. We've invested in funds who are focused on sustainable agriculture practices. The main thing is that the foundation is going to look at what its mission is and make sure that when you look at the mission of that company, the one lays right on the other. They line up. And as long as they line up, these can be a really useful way to advance that mission.
Great. I appreciate the insight from both of you. So, Emmaline, you touched on this a little bit, but what does the IRS require to document a program-related investment? And in your experience, do you find companies are hesitant to agree to those kind of requirements?
So like Michael and I both mentioned, many program-related investments involve parties that are not public charities, and that can be the benefit of making a program-related investment. But as a result, the IRS imposes certain documentation requirements on the private foundation and the recipient to ensure that the funds, the investment, are actually used for charitable purposes. So first, the foundation needs to conduct a limited inquiry to make sure that the potential recipient of the program-related investment will in fact use the funds for those stated purposes. So that typically includes confirming that the recipient has some sort of history engaging in this type of activity and has sound management and is not bankrupt, really basic things like that. It doesn't have to be super in-depth, but the idea is to make sure that the potential recipient is a legitimate organization and it's going to carry out the activities that further the foundation's charitable purpose. That's really key here. And then the foundation needs to enter into a written agreement with the recipient that specifies what the investment's purposes are going to be, and in which the recipient agrees to submit reports to the foundation, how the investment is ultimately used, agrees to maintain certain receipts and records and make these available to the private foundation, agrees to repay the funds if they're not used for their agreed upon purpose. That's an important one. And agrees to not use the funds for any prohibited purposes like that influencing legislation that we discussed earlier. Often when the foundation is making a program-related investment, it's working with a sophisticated party. So that party might have its own paperwork, its own documentation, and these IRS requirements can be incorporated within that. But I would say often I see that that documentation, the other party hasn't contemplated the charitable purpose of this investment. So it's really key that that is incorporated, that somewhere in the paperwork or there's some kind of documentation that the private foundation is making this investment because of this charitable purpose, not because of any return on investment. So sometimes that's the more difficult part. I know Michael can speak more to kind of the negotiation and ultimately getting to the agreement with these other parties.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like any other negotiation, right? So, sometimes people hear about this and they say, well, companies aren't going to want to do that. It's too onerous. It's too restrictive. That has really not been our experience. One thing we do is we take the concept of a side letter, which is something we commonly use in fund investing. And so these are fund investments, but they also could be direct investments in companies. It could be a convertible note or something like that. But what we're doing is we're putting a side letter as an addendum or exhibit to whatever is the main governing agreement. And that side letter is going to say, okay, you have to use this money for XYZ purpose. So this is a conversation we're having with both our client and the company they're investing in. Say, okay, what is the real reason we're doing this? Our client has a charitable reason, and we're going to state that charitable reason right in that side letter, make sure it lines up with the company's real mission, and then that company is going to make a commitment to only use these funds for that charitable reason. What we find is, like I said, it's like any other negotiation. Your client has something they want or need, and you have to achieve that in a way that gives the other party comfort. The good thing about this is everything Emmaline said is it's required by the IRS, but it's not real tight or restrictive in how you achieve those things. So we're able to work with the company, work with their attorneys to find that comfort level. The main thing here to me is if the mission of the company actually aligns with the charitable mission, they're generally going to be willing to make the commitments they need to make. And that might sound theoretical, but it really is our actual experience. On the other hand, if we find they're unwilling to comply, right, they're unwilling to commit to the documentation, access to the information about the activities of the company, if they're unwilling to commit to the remedy, if they violate these restrictions, that probably means they're not really committed to the specific purpose. And, we haven't had that actually happen because, like I said, we usually, our clients pick these investments carefully. But if it did happen, my response to my client would be, maybe this really isn't in the kind of alignment with your mission that we want. Maybe we need to think twice about this.
Excellent. So totally makes sense. And I guess final question for both of you, and that's, this isn't a grant. It's really a program-related investment. So how do you analyze a program-related investment in the same way that you would a typical investment, or do you do that? And even though the investment is made primarily for charitable purposes rather than money-making. So a little different spin on the investment here.
It is, but you're still conducting the diligence in terms of the legal terms the way you would with any investment, right? Because while we're making these investments for a charitable purpose, that doesn't mean you're being irresponsible about it. You're not throwing your money away, right? So we're still going to diligence the company. We're going to, if there's an ADV filed, it's a fund manager, we're looking at that ADV. We're looking at the reporting requirements for the company. We're looking at, who are the key persons and what's our guarantee that they're still going to be at the company? What happens if they leave? If it's, for example, a convertible note, we're looking at, what are the price terms upon conversion? What are the priority provisions? All the things that you would look at in a regular business deal, we're still looking at them. And if there are red flags for a client, even if those red flags have nothing to do with the charitable purpose, we're still raising those red flags, right? You're not making dumb decisions just because they might have a charitable purpose. So we're doing all the lawyer things we usually do.
Yes, to add to that, a question you sometimes get is, what if this investment does really well? And I'm happy to tell private foundations that that's allowed. A program-related investment might do well, and it might generate significant return. That's not always just the case. And as discussed, it can't be the primary purpose of the investment. But if it does do well, that doesn't disqualify it from being a program-related investment. So as you might imagine, that's beneficial for the private foundation because then they have these additional resources that can support their overall charitable purposes. So totally agree with Michael. It's key that due diligence is conducted for a program-related investment, just like any other use of the foundation's assets, because they need to be used for sound charitable purposes and shouldn't just be thrown away.
Well, I want to thank you both again for sharing your insight today. I know I definitely learned something, and I want to thank all of you for watching our presentation. For more information, please visit us on Foley.com under Family Offices. Thank you.